In the topic population interactions, today's topic of discussion is competition. Darwin, in his theory of evolution, he suggested that the individuals they multiply at a very rapid rate and there is limited food and space, and this rapid multiplication and limited food and space, this results in a competition among individuals, and this competition it results in natural selection, means organisms which are best suited to its environment they will survive, and this is also known as survival of fittest. Now this competition among the individuals, it is of two types, that is intraspecific and interspecific competition. Intraspecific competition is among the members of same species, whereas interspecific competition for food space, it occurs between members of different species. It is generally believed that competition occurs when closely related species they compete for same resources, that is food, space, etc. What we have said, that it is generally believed that competition occurs when closely related species they compete for the same resources, and number 2, the resources they are limited, and resources are limited. What is said, that competition takes place when closely related species they compete for food and space, and the resources, that is food and space, they are the limiting factors. It is a general belief, but this is not the case. This does not happen all the time. There are two reasons. Number 1, the competition can occur between unrelated species also. ज़रूरी नहीं है कि closely related species में ही competition होगा. The competition may occur between the unrelated species also. For example, in shallow South American lakes, the visiting flamingos and the resident fishes they compete for the common food, that is zooplankton. यानी कि साउथ अमेरिकन लेक्स में रेजिडेंट फिशेज which are already residing there, and the visiting flamingos. Flamingos are the birds which visit the lake, and both of them they are totally unrelated. This is Pisces, this is Aves. They are totally unrelated species, yet they compete for द सेम फूड, दैट इज जू प्लैंकटन. यानी कि कंपटीशन जो है वो ज़रूरी नहीं है क्लोजली रिलेटेड स्पीशीज़ में ही हो, इट कैन बी बिटवीन द अनरिलेटेड स्पीशीज़ ऑल्सो. एंड सेकेंडली, हम हमेशा ये क्यों मान लेते हैं दैट द रिसोर्सेज आर लिमिटेड. इट इज़ पॉसिबल दैट रिसोर्सेज they are not limited and still the competition may occur. For example, in this category, it is also possible that feeding efficiency of one species might reduce due to the presence of the another interfering and inhibitory species. Presence of another interfering and inhibitory species. क्या कहा हमने कि when the food and according to Darwin, when food and space is limited, The competition takes place among the members of same and among the members of different species, which leads to natural selection, that is the survival of fittest. Generally, it is believed that competition takes place between the members of closely related species and the resources are limited. ये मान ही लेते हैं competition में कि competition occurs between the members of only closely related species and the resources are limited. But there are two अदर ऑप्शंस. ऐसा भी हो सकता है कि स्पीशीज जो है वो अनरिलेटेड हो, जैसे कि हमने अभी एग्जांपल देखा कि फ्लेमिंगोज एंड द रेजिडेंट बर्ड्स इन साउथ अमेरिकन लेक्स दे compete फॉर द सेम फूड दैट इज जू प्लैंक्टन. और दूसरा ये भी हो सकता है कि रिसोर्सेज लिमिटेड नहीं है बट द फीडिंग एफिशिएंसी ऑफ वन स्पीशीज it may get reduced due to the presence of another interfering and inhibitory species. Now, Goss says, according to Goss and other experimental ecologists, by several experiments, they said that when resources are limited, then the competitively superior species, it will eliminate the other species which is less competitive, and this process, this phenomenon is called competitive expulsion. According to Goss's principle, which is based upon his experiments, he said that when the resources are limited, according to him, when the resources are limited, then the competitively superior species will eliminate the less superior species, and this is called competitive expulsion. However, the circumstantial evidence does not exist in some cases. There is an example. For example, Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Islands. These tortoises, they became extinct within a decade when goats were introduced to the same island. Why? Because the goats, they have greater browsing efficiency. दोनों का फूड क्या था? सेम vegetation, that the leaves present on herbs and shrubs, and the Abingdon tortoise in Galapagos Islands, it became extinct within a decade when the goats, they were introduced to the same island. And why? Because the goats, they had greater browsing efficiency. This is called competitive release. अगर एक सुपीरियर स्पीशीज दूसरी स्पीशीज को कंपटीशन में इलिमिनेट ही कर दे, दिस इज कॉल्ड कॉम्पिटिटिव एक्सकल्शन. बट if a species becomes extinct, if a species is eliminated without competition, this is called competitive release. So competitive release can be defined as a species whose distribution is restricted to a small geographical area because of the presence of competitively superior species. यानी एक और सुपीरियर स्पीशीज की प्रेजेंस में दूसरी स्पीशीज की जियोग्राफिकल डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन एक पर्टिकुलर एरिया में रिस्ट्रिक्ट हो जाए, this phenomenon is called competitive release. There is another example for this which is given by Connell's elegant field experiments that on the rocky sea coast of Scotland, there is present a superior branchial species, that is balenus, and this balenus dominates that particular intertidal area and it excludes the smaller branchial species, that is Chathamelus, from that zone. Yani presence of this balenus, a superior branchial species, it dominates and eliminates the smaller branchial species. So these are the example of competitive expulsion release कि presence of a superior species, it eliminates or it geographically restricts the distribution of another species. So these are the two examples, Abingdon tortoise and superior balenus species.